You're listening to the Religion Unplugged podcast. I'm Matthew Peterson, editor of the show. Religion and death, for many of us, go hand in hand. It is our faith that often shapes what we believe happens when we die, and perhaps just as importantly, what we ought to do while we still live. In fact, if a belief system does not ask us to consider our death and what it means for us, if it avoids the subject and keeps mortality at arm's length, it is almost certainly not a religion at all. The Bible is many things, and among them it is a ledger of death and dying. And while the Bible has far less to say about the afterlife than our cultural imagination likes to impose upon it, the reality of death rings loudly through every book in the collection. Death is the curse brought on in Genesis. It fills the following books through wars, plagues, and punishments. It operates as the enemy defeated by Jesus through resurrection, and it awaits many of his followers as they seek to spread his teachings. Today, Christians continue to grapple with their mortality, with where exactly they are going and how exactly they might get there. And while all of us know life will end, for those Christians who know that the end is imminent, faith can take on a whole new meaning. To understand what it's like to be a Christian while approaching death, culture critic Joseph Holmes spoke with actor and writer Victoria Jackson. Victoria was an SNL cast member back in the 80s and has had a long career in film and television, including work in many faith-based films. Jackson suffers from terminal breast cancer, and with the knowledge that her life is going to end, she recently wrote Not Dead Yet, which tells the story of her life, her faith, and how she is dealing with dying. As with all of our podcasts, Religion Unplugged believes in a diversity of opinions. The viewpoints presented in this episode do not necessarily represent those of Religion Unplugged, its staff, and contributors. Here's Victoria.
Welcome, everyone. I'm Joseph Holmes, film and culture critic for Religion Unplugged, and with me today is a very special guest. Victoria Jackson's an actress, comedian, and former SNL standout from 1986 to 1992. I personally grew up with her appearing in a wide variety of faith-based projects, including the Thou Shalt Laugh series. Tragically, for those of us familiar with her, she's been diagnosed with stage 4 incurable breast cancer, prompting her to write a new memoir intended to be a joyful reflection on her life, career, and faith called Not Dead Yet, a lifetime of handstands, art, and poetry. Victoria, it's a pleasure to speak with you.
It's a pleasure to speak with you, Joseph Holmes.
So I guess there's a lot of people. It's funny because you are a lot of people who know you from different eras kind of your life. I mean, there's the people who know you from SNL, and then there's people like me who grew up, see you like, oh, cool, there's this really fun, lively, wonderful, person who's appearing in all these faith-based projects I'm familiar with. So I guess I want, for people who maybe aren't familiar kind of with your history, one of the things, I mean, again, you come from this very Bible believing Christian background, and then you end up in SNL. How did that happen, and what was that experience like?
Good question. You know, most of my best work was done in not faith-based films. Somehow we have to get the Christian films to be up to par with the devil's films. I don't know how that's going to happen, but people who don't love Jesus wrote me my funniest material, and it's not dirty or bad. It's just better, funnier. But yeah.
As a longtime critic in the faith-based space, I can completely co-sign that statement.
Nobody wants to say it, but it's true. Anyway. Okay, so where am I? First, I have to tell you.
Oh, yes.
It looks like I'm in a purple jail. I am in a La Quinta Hotel in Manhattan, and it's about $450 a night. And it's a dump, but it's a great neighborhood. It's close to Central Park, close to the Dakota, where Paul McCartney and Lorne Michaels are now sitting and planning this last season show at SNL, where McCartney's going to be the musical host. And I got to meet him at the SNL 50 reunion, and I got a picture with him. And I started doing a deep dive on the Beatles, because when I grew up, that was a sin. We didn't have records. We didn't have Beatles. I mean, I heard them in the mall wafting through the, stores. But anyway, I think he's a good songwriter. And
I think he's going to go places.
yeah, I think he might have a career in music. But anyway, so to answer your question, so anyway, this room I'd show you, but it's a dump. Now, the first night I got here, I got a $500 room. So for 100 more, I had a fantastic view, and it was gorgeous. So now I'm thinking, what's $100? I should have stayed in the fancy room. But anyway, it has a clean bed and a really cold air conditioner, so I'm happy. And I'm here in New York doing PR for my new book. And I got to be with Bill O'Reilly yesterday, which was interesting. He's a Catholic and he wrote a book called Killing Jesus. And I started reading it on the plane, and it's very well done. It's historical research facts proving that there was a Jesus, that people said he did rise from the dead. Like, this isn't even from a Christian pastor thing. No, this is from Bill O'Reilly. I am a neutral journalist. The only one.
No
left.
spin zone.
Yeah, no spin. He's the only one left. Everyone else has an opinion. I said to him after the interview, I go, "Are you a conservative? Because you won't say it. And I know it's good to be neutral because that's what journalism is supposed to be." And he goes, "I'm a traditionalist." I said, "Oh, you're a conservative."
So that's what conservative means. Yeah.
Okay, you're us. Okay. So anyway, he doesn't want a label. I don't either. Okay, so how I got in showbiz, being a born-again Christian at age 6. And I knew it.
You got started early. It's like, if I'm going to get born again, I might as well start early.
Yeah. So I was raised in a Baptist home. We went to church 3 times a week. My dad played the piano sometimes. He was a Baptist deacon / women's gymnastics coach. And he used to be in vaudeville. So he loved show business. He loved gymnastics. And he loved Jesus. And he loved the Bible. And so that's what I turned into. Oh, here's my book title.
Not Dead Yet. That's right. The t-shirt. Nice.
That's how I got the title. I saw the t-shirt online and I thought that'd be a great shirt to wear because everywhere I go with my friends and my family, they're like, "How much longer does she have?" It's like the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
So I thought,
how do I not, how do I talk about this or not talk about this? Yeah.
So it makes everyone smile. So
good.
Anyway, so my dad, I really respect my parents. They walked the walk. They did not just talk the talk. They were very happy. They were never afraid of anything because they trusted the Lord. They trusted God, that he was in control and his will be done. So I was raised that way. Now, my brother in the same household, he was different and he doesn't like church. So, I mean, he got saved. So, I go, well, was I brainwashed? My brother was raised in the same home and we chose different belief systems. I do think my brother believed in Jesus, but I think he had a hard relationship with my dad and that kind of, anyway. So when I was 16, my dad goes, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And I said, "I don't know." And he goes, "Well, if you could be anything, what would you be?" And I said, "Well, I would be Maria and the Sound of Music, and I would be married to the captain and live in a mansion, and all my kids would wear matching outfits, and we'd sing with my ukulele, and we'd harmonize." And my dad goes, "That sounds like an actress." And I never thought of that. I thought when you go to the movies, it's just magic. And, I never thought it's a career or a job or anything. And so he said, "I don't recommend it because show business and Christianity don't mix very well. But if that's what you want to do, give it 100%.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's like, So that's what I did. And I enrolled in an acting class in North Miami. That was kind of hilarious. It was like a 90-year-old woman, and I didn't learn anything. And then I went to Bible college, and and the only thing you could be at Florida Bible College was a pastor's wife or a Christian school teacher. And none of the guys asked me to marry them, and we're going to be pastors. And then I thought, well, I love writing poems. So I became an English major at Furman in South Carolina, where I got a gymnastics scholarship. And I was very encouraged in my writing. And so this book that I just put together was kind of a lifelong thing because I kept all the poems and songs I've ever written. I put them in
Wow.
Yeah, I put them in chronological order, and then I took handstand photos of my whole life from age like 4 to 65, doing handstands everywhere I've gone. One day when I was like 35, I realized I had a lot of handstand photos of my dad and my mom and me young, and then I was going to do stand up in all these different cities, and I thought, hey, get a snapshot in every city in front of something that looks like that city. That would be a good collection. And so I put them all together because when I got my diagnosis, I thought, okay, the story of Hezekiah in the Bible when God said, get your things in order, you're going to die soon. And then Hezekiah cried, and then God said, okay, 15 more years. Well, I got cancer in 2015, and then it came back 2 years ago. I named my dog Hezekiah because I was studying that story in community Bible study at the time I was diagnosed. But so I thought, okay, make a will, get a grave, finish the book. And it was good motivation. It gave me something to do, and it was super fun. And I think that, um, well, of course, my goal is to have the gospel threaded through it so that my goal for everything is that to bring people to the Jesus. And I really wish people would read the Bible. All the answers to everything are in it, and it's alive, and every day you learn something new. And yeah, so I thought maybe I could entertain people, encourage people, and educate them. So,
Yeah. How has that, it's interesting. You and I have something in common in which we've sort of been, Christians our whole lives without, not that, I personally can speak to myself. I wrestled with my faith a lot, particularly growing up in adolescence, but there isn't a time where I could say, here I wasn't a Christian and now I am, and therefore I have that perfect kind of before and after to compare those things to. But it is really interesting when people are preparing for their deaths, and all of us are to some degree. Some of us just have maybe more insight on the timing than others. But, if you're able to, because you talked about the Bible and using kind of what God has talked about in the Bible as a lens for dealing with your, coming in mortality, what have you found has been something that's been that your faith has interacted with that in a very particular way?
what's that question again?
So, like, how has your faith changed how you look at, your what you need to do to prepare for death and what, that hope you have in death and all of that?
Well, I've been preparing for death since I was 6. Because if you're raised in the church, they talk about death every day.
All the time. Yes.
It's like heaven, hell, death, 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 death.
Do you know where you will go when you die?
Every day. I thought, I've heard the gospel told so many times, and it's still so hard to explain it to somebody. It's like I've heard it so much I can't even hear it anymore. I like what you said about you can't remember a time before you were a Christian. I've always been jealous of people who got saved when they were a grown up
Sure, yeah.
because they're like, oh, my life is so different. Everything's different. And I used to do this. And I'm like, nothing's different.
Yeah.
All my sins came after I became a Christian.
Right. Yes. Yes.
You know, that's hard. It's like, why was I still sinning?
Yeah.
And so but then my friends who got saved late in life, they're like, oh, I'm so jealous of you because you got to be with the Lord. But yeah, I mean, we were probably spared a lot of pain because we were raised that way. Yeah. So preparing for death, been doing it my whole life. The thing that's interesting to me is your whole life you sing about it, the Lord and his blood's redeeming you. You memorize it, you talk about it, and now I'm like living it out. Like now it's like, oh, is your faith real? Are you scared to die? Are you sad? I mean, if you really believe it, Vicky, you would be very excited that you're going to meet the Lord soon. You would be, of course, a Christian is always living every day as if it's their last because Jesus said, go into the world and preach the gospel and make disciples. And so the Great Commission. So every day we're like, oh, one more day to tell one more soul. So that rules out the euthanasia pill. However, I have had some pain in my hips that's really excruciating. I now have cancer on my 5 vertebrae and my pelvic bone, but it was right in my chest 2 years ago, and it was making me hard to breathe, and I thought I was going to suffocate to death. And they radiated it, and it disappeared. So now I can breathe great.
That's awesome.
Yeah, they have a lot of tricks they can do to prolong life. And it's kind of funny to me because all these doctors study all these years and they're wearing white coats and they're all like young and they're running around with big machines and they're trying to keep us old people alive one more day. And it's like, is my life really that valuable that these old people in the lobby are they really that valuable that you have to, oh, I got one more day to eat myself, and then I thought, well, as a believer, yes, because maybe that day you got to lead someone to the Lord. And now that I'm in New York and I'm surrounded by unbelievers and I'm not in my bubble of Nashville where a lot of people are believers, because there's churches on every corner and the parking lots are full every Sunday. When I was working in LA and New York my whole career, I could hardly find a church that preached the truth and the parking lots were empty. So I'm like surrounded by unbelievers and I have like a passion like in the Bible when did Jesus say, I wish I could gather you under my wings?
Yeah.
And then Paul had that passion too, like I would die if my people, the Jews, could understand the gospel. I sort of feel that, like I feel like they're so lost and I love them. But I have some unsaved friends here I think I'm making some headway with. Because I've loved them for 40 years that I've known them. They're New York Jewish liberals, and they do not believe, they think Jesus was a con man or something. But I don't know. I felt like I might be making, I think the Lord is going to use my cancer and death for his glory. That's my prayer.
No, that's really wonderful. Like, to be able to say that, one of the things, about being a Christian is, and I've seen a lot of even secular people note this, that it does transform tragic things into beautiful things. Again, what we have the cross, which is literally meant to be a instrument of torture and death, and suddenly now it becomes a symbol of resurrection. So I think that's really beautiful how you've internalized that.
it out.
Yes, yes, you have to. That's where the rubber hits the road, is when you actually say, okay, this is what you say you believe. Let's walk through it.
And I'm surprising myself. I'm like, wow, this faith thing is real.
Yes.
I really feel peace about it.
Yeah. I want you to talk to, because you mentioned having friends that you've known since, you've been here in New York and, in your SNL days. And you have very strong disagreements about extremely important things. And yet you're able to maintain, again, speaking as a millennial, having friends that are the same for 40 years sounds like a miracle of Jesus, so, and let alone people you have very strong disagreements with. So I guess talk about what it's like to have deep friendships with people who are very much part of the Christian community, like you said, kind of Christian bubble, and people who have very different beliefs that don't share your faith or your politics, but you have those deep. What are those different friendships like, and how is it that you're able to have those kinds of relationships?
It's awkward.
Yeah.
It's very awkward. And especially now the politics is so, it didn't used to be like that. Dividing. It didn't used to be so dividing.
Okay, that's very interesting. Again, you were there. You were part of the Bible Belt, and then you went into SNL, and so if you were saying it's not as divided in the political way as it was now, that's saying something.
Well, when I was on Saturday Night Live in the 80s, there was not teenagers cutting their genitals off to be cool or because they were gender confused. That didn't exist. There was not TV shows with homosexual themes telling teenagers to kiss each other, two boys kissing like on Glee. That wasn't in the 80s. And there is a book called After the Ball, and it's about two PR guys who were gay, and they purposefully tried to make homosexuality mainstream, and they did it in 12 years. I told that to Bill O'Reilly. The one thing you cannot say and keep a career in show business is that homosexuality is a sin. You cannot say that anymore. You could in the early 80s. Even in the 90s, when Julia Sweeney was on SNL doing Pat, is it a man or a woman? I don't think she'd be allowed to do that these days.
No. Well, so that's again kind of gets back to my question. You have these views that are very against, a lot of, people that, live in New York. So again, so kind of tell me more about that. You say it's awkward. In what way is it awkward, and how do you overcome the awkwardness?
Well, last night I went to, this is interesting. I only have a few friends that I stayed in touch with, because it's hard to have a friend,
Yeah.
And one of them was my dresser from SNL. And her job was to make sure my hose were put on quickly for the next sketch, and my wig, and my this, and my that. A very humble job. Meanwhile, she's an actress and a playwright, and I took a playwriting class from her on Zoom this year.
Wow.
So I always respected her so much because she was very professional. And anyway, last night I went to, this is so funny, my Jewish liberal friend Peter was singing in a choir. I'm like, what? You're singing in a choir? What choir? And I went to the Upper East Side, and I didn't know anybody except him and his immediate family. And I said, well, what are you singing? They were singing Dvorak, Dvorak, Mass, a Dvorak Mass. And I'm like, what's that? It's classical. There was an orchestra, and he's in this choir. And they were singing praise to God. If I could find the words and show you. They were singing worship, praise, gloriously beautiful praise to God and Jesus, and the whole gospel was in the song. His resurrection, hallelujah. It was in Latin. So, and I could tell a lot of them were not believers. Maybe none of them, I don't know. and they were singing, his resurrection, hallelujah. And I was like, Peter, I gave him my new book, and I wrote in the front, it was really fun watching you sing the gospel tonight and praise to Jesus Christ, my Messiah and your Messiah, Isaiah 7:14. I was like, the Lord is going to get glory. Even if the people don't want to, like he said, even the rocks will sing out. And then I was in the lobby before it, and I was talking to two strangers, and they let me interview them. I might put it on my Instagram. And then one of the guy, I said to the guy, I go, my Jewish liberal friend is singing praise to Jesus and this thing. And he goes, well, just because you're singing it doesn't mean you endorse it. And I thought, oh, yeah. I mean, I wouldn't sing any of those rap songs with F-U biatched in them. I would feel like I was endorsing it. Yeah. Of course, if I was doing it in Latin, I might not know what I'm saying. Actually, I can't tell what they're saying in those rap songs. But anyway, I love that you're exploring in your podcast culture, because Christians have run away from it, and we should jump right in it, be in the world, but not of the world.
So, okay, so what I'm hearing you say is, there's a couple of things that you need to have things in common with people, in order to have relationships with them.
Yeah.
And, for your people who you share your faith with, you share that with them. And they may not always understand your artistic kind of side of you.
Right.
Many of them do, but they understand the faith side of you.
Right.
And you have a lot of friends, again, a lot from your time in SL, your creative artistic side, you share that with them. But the faith side, they may not understand. But even there, you can see well, you still do sing a lot of the songs. You understand the beauty that's inherent in there, even if you don't agree with the message. So but you're right. I mean, if we are getting more divided in many ways as a society, it gets harder and harder because the fewer things we have in common, that makes it harder. But you still have to find what are those things that we have in common, so in order to maintain relationships in that way. Now, but you just also mentioned the Christian, entertainment aspect, how Christians run away from it, or oftentimes when we try to embrace it, we do the worst version of it, the dreaded Christian version of X that we've all seen. So how would you encourage Christians to do it in a way that is glorifying to God, doesn't involve kind of losing their soul, but does still engage in the world, but other world, as you said?
Well, that's the tricky part. And I think of the verse, work out your salvation with fear and trembling. When I was little, I was like, what does that mean? But now I kind of get it, because when I wrote my book, my artistic side wanted to show my naked handstand in the Poconos, because this is a collection of handstands of my whole life, and trying to keep my husband happy romantically was one of my jobs. And I was trying to be a fun wife so he would be faithful. And I crossed out with a pen the private areas, and I thought, Christians can't be offended by that. And I asked my husband.
Yeah, they can.
Yeah, they can. And then there's a bikini shot. And the thing is, in my real life, I've never worn a bikini. The only time I've ever worn one was when my father, who's really into aesthetic art, wanted a picture of me on my first car when I was 16, doing a handstand on the top of it, because he had a picture of him doing a handstand on the top of his car when he was 18 or something. And a Ford Opera Coupe, from 1920. It's a great picture. It's in my book. So he's in a bathing suit so they can see the gymnastic muscles. And so you don't have a shirt flapping and making you fall. What do you wear if you're on a swim team? A trench coat,
Yeah.
So it's hard to be a Christian and try to wrestle with modesty and everything. So So my dad told my mom, Marlene, make Vicky a red bikini to match her car because it's red. And then me and my mom were like, a bikini? But of course, if you're upside down like this, you're stretched out and you look skinnier. So I thought, well, my fat stomach won't show as much. Of course, I was a skeleton, but I thought I was fat. That's a girl thing and gymnast thing. But anyway, me and my mom were like, but mom, I'm flat chested. That's going to look horrible. And so my mom got red terry cloth material. It was like a towel, thick towel material, so that it would be bunchy right here and bunchy right here. And you couldn't tell there was nothing there. And we arranged this photo,
Wow.
artistically. So that's like the family I grew up in. And I never wore a bikini like to the beach. I feel completely naked. Um, but anyway, I even felt bad when I had a little tummy showing right here. Um, when I was a child, and it was a two-piece, I felt kind of naked because I was raised that way, and I should feel that way. It's a beautiful modesty is a beautiful thing, and I think a lot of these young girl singers, they could have great careers if they would not quit trying to out tramp each other. It's like, can I get more stripper looking than the next singer? It's like there's a couple singers who wear like 1930s modest thing. It's just so adorable.
Yeah.
But
No, but so, to your point, it is a difficult because Christian. I think it was Dorothy Sayers. I could be making a mistake. It says that the Christian artist is at a disadvantage because they don't want to just do something that's beautiful. They also want to do something that's true. And you don't necessarily. That may be not the best way to formulate it. People can have different ways of formulating. But that thing of like, well, I don't want to cross moral boundaries that I
right.
believe in. Or in these very specific religious ones, at least, and I want to also be beautiful, also be creative, having to balance those. But I think to your point, the encouragement is to do it, at least try to do it. Don't exit the game. Try to play the game, even if you play it badly, even if you make mistakes, still be in the game.
It's all about you and Jesus,
Yeah.
and you're talking to. I mean, you're like, is this okay? And should I? And I didn't hear anything back, and I asked my Christian friends, and my friends like, well, if you don't have peace about it, then you shouldn't do it. And I'm like, So, but all in all, Jesus knows my heart. And I think people do too. I think they can read between the lines. People know your motive. I think they can tell. And are you trying to be seductive, or is this? I love the quote, "Art is preaching" by Anne Lamott. Have you ever heard
Mm.
that?
Yes, yes, I have. Yeah, no, that's a good
I
one.
love that because no matter what art you're doing, you are preaching a message of some kind. Some people might not even they might not even know, but
Yeah.
I know what message they're saying
Yeah.
when I look at it.
So what kind of going back to your book, what is it that you would want most kind of people to take away from your journey as you've gone on this journey of faith and confronting your mortality, which comes for all of us? If people are, whether they're Christians or not Christians, and they are wrestling with the fact that they're going to die, and how am I going to be best prepared for that? What would you want to say to them?
I want them to read the Bible and study the Bible every day and chew on it. It is so powerful. Um, my favorite devotional is this is by Anne Graham Lotz, and it's not her idea of what the Bible is saying. It's called Daily Light. It's just, the date and then a bunch of verses. So if you're like, I don't know what to read in the Bible today, like I'm like, I don't know, should I start in Genesis again? So it's like, so if the date, you just go to the date. And she took a bunch of verses kind of with a common theme and smushed them together and puts their references at the bottom.
Mm.
And I just, every time I do it, like it's very powerful, and also worship music. And I think that is the secret to life, to read God's word, because it says that the flower will fade and everything, but God's word will never disappear. And Jesus Christ the same yesterday, today, and forever.
Thank you so much. Well, if people want to buy your book, want to see more of kind of what you're doing, follow you on this journey, where can they go?
Well, Victoria Jackson Official is my Instagram, and I post on there a lot. And YouTube, Victoria Jackson, I think it's just my name. And where do they? Oh, victoriajackson.com is my website. And yeah, you're awesome, and God bless you. I think He's using you.
Well, thank you. I very much appreciate that. And I know he's using you. So everyone, please check out Victoria Jackson's book, Not Dead Yet. It's available in all the places, I assume. Yes. Amazon, the book, wherever bookstore, just Google the book, you'll be able to find it. Yes. Amazing. Well, thank you so much for being here. And thank you everyone for listening. This is Religion Unplugged, your one-stop shop for all the best religious news and culture.